Did you know that the average person's heart rate increases by 30% during a scary moment in a story? And in some cases, people can feel chills or get goosebumps. This is your body's response to fear. It's no wonder that some of the most popular movies and books rely on fear to keep us hooked. But here's the real question: how do the masters of terror create that spine-chilling experience? In this guide, you'll learn the secrets behind terrifying your audience, not by relying on jump scares, but through powerful storytelling techniques that leave people on edge long after the story ends. We'll uncover how to keep them guessing, how to play with their minds, and how to turn every moment into a pulse-pounding experience. Get ready to dive into strategies you won't hear anywhere else. By the end, you'll know exactly how to master fear in your stories, whether you're crafting a book, film, or any narrative. Let's begin your journey into the heart of horror and suspense. Chapter 1: The Art of the Unseen. Building tension with the invisible. The best way to scare people is by not showing them everything. Imagine a scene where the danger is never fully revealed, your mind fills in the gaps, and that's often far worse. One of the most terrifying things is what you don't see. In a study, researchers found that the human brain tends to amplify the unknown. Our imagination fills in terrifying details when we don't have all the answers. Take the classic horror movie Jaws as an example. The shark, often unseen, is far more terrifying than it could ever be in full view. This taps into the primal fear of the unknown. You don't need to show a monster on screen to make the audience's heart race. Instead, suggest its presence through sounds, shadows, and movements that leave them guessing. That's where the real fear comes from. A great way to apply this is through sound design. Think of the distant, echoing steps of a character walking through a dark hallway. Your audience is already picturing what could be lurking in the shadows, which makes them terrified long before anything happens. By leaving things out, you let your audience's imagination run wild, and they'll terrify themselves. The invisible is often the most frightening. Chapter 2: Whispers in the Dark. The power of silence and pause. The power of silence in storytelling cannot be overstated. Sometimes, the scariest moments happen when nothing is said at all. In fact, research shows that our brains are hardwired to feel discomfort when there's a sudden lack of sound. Silence creates a void, a tension that builds, waiting for something to break it. And when it does, it's far more intense than if the sound had been constant. Think about the moments before a jump scare. The absence of sound, that eerie quietness, heightens the anticipation. It forces the audience to wait and wonder, what's going to happen next? Studies show that the more intense the silence, the more likely your audience's heart rate will increase. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of something waiting to strike. The key to using silence effectively is knowing when to hold back. Pause before your big reveal. Let the audience sit with the fear and build their own tension. The longer you wait, the more their fear will grow. This also works in dialogue. A character might hear something or feel watched, but if you leave that moment silent, the fear of what they can't hear becomes more gripping than any sound. Chapter 3: The Mind's Eye. Making your audience see what you don't show. One of the oldest tricks in the book is to make your audience see something that isn't there. The human mind fills in the blanks, and that's when terror strikes. In The Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe doesn't tell us directly what's terrifying the narrator. Instead, he relies on the narrator's obsession with the sound of a heartbeat, driving him to madness. By suggesting terror rather than spelling it out, Poe made the reader's imagination do the scariest part of the work. Psychological fear works because it taps into universal anxieties. Whether it's the fear of being alone, the unknown, or something lurking just out of sight, the mind loves to imagine the worst. You can play into these fears by describing something in a way that leaves much to the imagination. Instead of saying, "a figure in the shadows," say, "something that wasn't quite human." The fear grows from the lack of specificity. Humans are naturally afraid of things we can't fully understand, like the dark or strange sounds. In a famous study by neuroscientists, it was shown that the brain reacts more strongly to ambiguous stimuli, which is why stories with uncertain or vague threats often feel more terrifying. The less you describe, the more your audience will feel the fear grow, as their minds begin to imagine something worse than the truth. If you found these strategies useful, Don't forget to subscribe for more insider tips on how to master storytelling and keep your audience on edge. We've just scratched the surface of creating tension and terror. Chapter 4: Twist the Knife. Mastering the art of false comfort. One of the most effective ways to scare your audience is by making them feel safe, only to pull that safety away in an instant. It's all about building comfort and then shattering it. A great example of this technique is Stephen King's Carrie, where the protagonist has a brief moment of hope before it all crumbles into chaos. It's a gut punch when everything you thought was safe suddenly turns on you. The human brain is naturally wired to seek comfort and predictability. When that sense of security is disrupted, the shock hits harder. Researchers have found that the brain responds more intensely to unexpected events, especially when they contradict expectations. This is why horror stories often lead you down a peaceful path before revealing something horrifying. It tricks the audience into thinking they know what's coming, only to upend their assumptions. This technique works well in both plot and character development. Introduce a character that seems trustworthy, but then reveal a darker side. This moment of betrayal shakes the foundation of trust, increasing fear. It's the fear of being deceived and realizing that nothing is what it seemed. This unsettling feeling of being played by the story keeps the audience hooked and keeps them guessing about what will happen next. Chapter 5: The Villain You Never See. Creating fear from what's not there. Sometimes, the most terrifying thing is the villain you can't see. Whether it's a monster lurking in the dark or an unseen force manipulating events, the villain's absence creates a sense of dread that lingers. In The Haunting of Hill House, the true horror is not the ghosts you can see, but the invisible force that influences the characters' minds. This hidden terror messes with the character's perception of reality, and it's terrifying because you can never quite pin it down. When the villain is unseen, the terror lies in uncertainty. The mind starts to imagine what might be lurking in the dark. It's a proven psychological fact that humans are more afraid of the unknown. According to a study in the Journal of Fear Studies, people's fear responses heighten when they face uncertainty, as their brains go into overdrive trying to predict what could be out there. The fear of what's not there often outpaces the fear of what is. In your storytelling, avoid revealing your antagonist too early. Keep the audience in suspense by using subtle clues that suggest something is wrong, but never fully show the threat. Whether it's a shadowy figure in the distance or an inexplicable noise just out of sight, the audience will start to create their own terrifying image. This method plays on a powerful psychological trick. When we can't see something, our imagination runs wild, and it's almost always worse than the truth. Chapter 6: The Dreadful Reveal. Unmasking the horror. In many great stories, the most terrifying moment comes when the truth is finally revealed. But here's the catch: the reveal must be paced just right. Think of the moment in The Sixth Sense when Bruce Willis's character realizes the shocking truth about his situation. The reveal is terrifying, not just because of the twist, but because it has been built up so skillfully. The truth is there all along, but you don't see it until the perfect moment. The human mind craves resolution, but it also craves mystery. This is why withholding information and revealing it at the right moment can create a terrifying impact. A study by the University of California found that suspense increases the fear response in the brain, especially when there's a payoff at the end. When you withhold information, you're building the anticipation for that moment when the truth is exposed, and the tension reaches its peak. When crafting your reveal, make sure it's grounded in the story. The audience should feel both shocked and yet as if they should have seen it coming. This dual emotion creates the most powerful reaction. You can build the tension by dropping small hints or clues along the way, but never fully giving away the answer. The final reveal should feel like a punch in the gut, not just because of what is revealed, but because the audience has been unknowingly complicit in the build-up. If you enjoyed learning these techniques, be sure to subscribe for more on how to create suspense and master the art of storytelling. With these strategies, your stories will leave your audience feeling haunted long after they've finished. Conclusion: fear is an emotion that thrives in discomfort and uncertainty. By twisting expectations, keeping the villain unseen, and pacing the reveal just right, you can craft a story that grips your audience from start to finish. In this guide, we've explored how to build tension through false comfort, play with the unknown, and deliver a gut-wrenching reveal. These strategies will not only terrify your audience but leave them thinking about your story long after it's over. Now, you have the tools to make every moment of your story pulse with fear. Happy storytelling.